In this video, we'll be covering everything you need to know for the government. If you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And if you'd like to learn more about my full Life in the UK test course, head to uklifeprep.com, link in the description below. Let's jump in. The Prime Minister, known as PM for short, is the leader of the political party in power. The official home of the PM is 10 Downing Street in central London, and they also have a country house outside of London called Chequers. Things I'd remember from this section would be where the home of the Prime Minister is, and the name of the Prime Minister's country house. Looking at some typical questions, the first question reads, where is the official home of the Prime Minister? We saw this was 10 Downing Street. The next question reads, Chequers is the name of the Prime Minister's country house. True or false? We saw that this was true. The Prime Minister appoints around 20 senior MPs to form his cabinet, which is a committee which usually meets weekly to make important decisions about government policy. The major departments of the cabinet are the Chancellor of Exchequer, who is responsible for the economy, the Home Secretary, who is responsible for crime, policing and immigration, the Foreign Secretary, who is responsible for managing relationships with other countries, and other ministers called Secretaries of States, who are responsible for areas such as education, health, and defence. Things I'd remember from this section would be the departments of the cabinet and what each is responsible for. Looking at some typical questions, the first question reads, who is responsible for crime, policing, and immigration? We saw this was the Home Secretary. The next question reads, the Chancellor of Exchequer is responsible for the economy. True or false? This statement is true. The opposition is the second largest party in the House of Commons. It is the opposition's job to point out failures and weaknesses of the government to keep them in check. One important opportunity to do this is during Prime Minister's questions, which takes place once a week when Parliament is sitting. The leader of the opposition usually becomes Prime Minister if their party wins the next general election, and the leader also appoints shadow ministers who form the shadow cabinet, whose role it is to challenge the government and put forward alternative policies. Things I'd remember from this section would be how often Prime Minister's questions take place. Looking at a typical question, the question reads, how often are Prime Minister's questions held in Parliament? We saw this was every week. Anyone over 18 can stand for election as an MP, but they are unlikely to be nominated by the people in their constituency unless they belong to one of the major well-known political parties, which include the Conservative Party, the Labour Party, and the Liberal Democrats. There are a few MPs who do not represent any of the main political parties, and these are known as independents. Pressure and lobby groups are organisations that try to influence government policy. For example, Greenpeace, which is an environmental group, often lobbies the government for things like taking action on climate change and animal rights. Things I'd remember from this section would be the names of the major political parties, what an independent is, and what pressure and lobby groups do. Looking at some typical questions, the first question reads, which two are political parties in the UK? We saw that it was the Conservative Party and the Labour Party. The next question reads, pressure and lobby groups try to influence British government policy. True or false? We saw that this was true. Civil servants support ministers in developing and implementing government policies. People in the civil service are not political appointees, and anyone can apply to be a civil servant just like any other job, but they have to be politically neutral and are selected on their merits. Things I'd remember from this section would be that civil servants are politically neutral and chosen on merit. Looking at a typical question, the question reads, how are civil servants appointed and what political party do they belong to? Looking at the available options, the correct answer is they are chosen on merit and are politically neutral. Towns, cities and rural areas in the UK are governed by elected councils known as local authorities, and local elections are usually held each year in May. Local authorities are funded by both central government as well as local taxes such as council tax. Many councillors of local authorities elect a mayor who is the ceremonial leader of the council. Things I'd remember from this section would be when local elections usually take place, how local government is funded, and who is usually appointed as a ceremonial head of the council. Looking at some typical questions, the first question reads, who do some local authorities appoint as a ceremonial leader? We saw that this was a mayor. The next question reads, local elections are held in May, true or false? We saw that this was true. The UK has what is known as devolved administrations. This means the countries of Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland that over the centuries joined England to form the UK have their own governments with limited control over certain areas. There has been a Welsh and Scottish Parliament since 1999, as well as a Northern Irish Assembly. The UK government has the power to suspend these parliaments and has done so to the Northern Irish Assembly on a few occasions. Elections in each of these assemblies is done through a system called proportional representation, and as the name suggests, is where political parties are given a certain number of seats in Parliament that represents their total share of the votes. In other words, seats in Parliament are proportional to the total votes cast. This is different to the first past the post system we saw earlier, which is used in general elections, where as we saw, seats are awarded to MPs who win in their local constituencies, and not as a proportion of the total votes across the UK. Devolved administrations cannot make policy and laws governing defence, foreign affairs, immigration, taxation and social security, as these remain under the control of the central UK government. Things I'd remember from this section would be that Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland have their own parliament. The UK government can suspend these and has done so to Northern Ireland on several occasions. That each of these governments uses a system of proportional representation, and that these items remain under the control of the central UK government. Looking at some typical questions, the first question reads, the UK government has never suspended the Northern Ireland Assembly, true or false? This statement is false. Members of the Northern Ireland Parliament are elected using which system? We saw that this was proportional representation. The official guide has a ton of information relating to each of the devolved administrations, so I've tried my best to summarize the key facts you need to know in this table. In the first row, I've listed the location of each parliament. In the second row, I've listed the number of members that make up each parliament as well as the names of these members. In the third row, I have listed how often elections take place in each country, and fortunately, you only need to know this for Wales. And in the fourth column, I've listed what each devolved administration can pass laws on. To avoid boring you, I suggest pausing the video and reading through these yourself. Things I'd remember from this section would be where each parliament is located, the number of members and what they are called for each assembly, how often elections take place in Wales, and what each administration can pass laws on. Looking at some typical questions, the first question reads, every how many years are the members of the Welsh assemblies elected? We saw that this was 4. The next question reads, which 2 of the following issues can the Northern Ireland Assembly make decisions on? We saw this was agriculture and social services. The next question reads, how many members does the Welsh Assembly have? We saw that this was 60. The next question reads, where is the National Assembly for Wales based? We saw this was Cardiff. Any proceedings in Parliament are broadcast on TV and published in official records called Hansard. The UK has a free press, which means that anything written in newspapers or other media outlets is free from government control. By law, radio and TV coverage of political parties must be balanced and equal time has to be given to rival viewpoints. Things I'd remember from this section would be what Hansard is, that the UK has a free press, and which 2 types of media by law need to give equal time to rival political parties. Looking at some typical questions, the first question reads, proceedings in Parliament are broadcast on television and published in official reports known as. We saw this was Hansard. The next question reads, by law, which 2 types of media have to give a balanced coverage of all political parties and equal time to rival viewpoints? We saw this was television and radio. Citizens of the UK, the Commonwealth and Ireland aged 18 and over can vote in all public elections. In order to vote, you need to be registered on the Electoral Register. The Electoral Register is updated every year in September or October by a form which is sent to every household, which needs to be completed and returned with the names of everyone who lives in the household who can vote. In Northern Ireland, there is a different system called individual registration, where each person is responsible for completing their own registration form and need to update it when any of their personal details change, such as their address. Things I'd remember from this section would be who can vote in elections and how old you need to be, what the electoral register is, and the name of the system used in Northern Ireland. Looking at some typical questions, the first question reads, at what age can you vote in a general election in the UK? We saw this was 18. The next question reads, Scotland and Wales use a system called individual registration, where all those entitled to vote must complete their own registration form. This statement is false. Individual registration is only used in Northern Ireland. You can vote in elections at places called polling stations or polling places. Before an election, you will be sent what is called a poll card, which tells you where your polling station is and when the election will take place. Once you arrive at the polling station, you will be given a ballot paper, which is what you fill in to cast your vote, and once completed, it goes into a ballot box. If you are unable to attend a polling station, you can complete a postal ballot, where you will be sent your ballot and you post it back. Things I'd remember from this section would be where voting takes place, what information a poll card contains, where you put your ballot, and what you can do if you cannot attend a polling station. Looking at some typical questions, the first question reads, if you can't make it to a polling station to vote, you can register for which of the following? We saw this was a postal ballot. The next question reads, a poll card contains which two pieces of information? We saw this was the date of the election and where the polling station is. Most citizens of the UK, the Commonwealth and Ireland aged 18 and over can stand for public office. Exceptions include members of the armed forces, civil servants, and people guilty of certain criminal offences. Members of the House of Lords cannot stand for election to the House of Commons, but are eligible for other public offices. Things I'd remember from this section would be who can stand for public office and from what age, and who cannot stand for public office. Looking at some typical questions, the first question reads, civil servants cannot stand for public office, true or false? We saw that this was true. The next question reads, at what age can you stand for public office in the UK? We saw that this was 18. Anyone from the public can listen to debates in the House of Commons or Lords, and entrance is free. Things I'd remember from this section would be that visiting Parliament is free. Looking at a typical question, the question reads, it costs £15 per person to visit the Houses of Parliament to watch debates. True or false? We saw that this was false. It's free to attend Parliament to watch debates. Hi there, my name is Dan and I hope you enjoyed watching. I've posted this video for free on YouTube, and if you've liked what you've seen and want to access my full Life in the UK test course, then head to uklifeprep.com, link in the description below. In my course, I've completely stripped down the official guide and cut away all the nonsense to focus on what you actually need to know for the questions that are actually asked. Having prepared for the test myself, I know firsthand how painful it is going through 150 pages of dense facts and not having a clue the types of questions you'll get asked. I've used my 10+ years of experience in online education to build an easy to follow online course that promises to get you 100% ready in the shortest amount of time possible. To show your support and get updates on any new videos I release, please subscribe to my channel by clicking here, and to watch more free videos that I have posted on YouTube, click the playlist here. I look forward to learning with you and wish you the best of luck in the test.